I'm a fan of noise cancellation. Anyone with me? At night, I sleep with a fan on for the white noise, and I've done this for years, probably since college. But a few years ago, I bought a small machine that is only for white noise. I got a big old eye roll from my husband when it showed up because it doesn't double up to keep me cool like a fan. It doesn't provide moisture to a room like a humidifier. It's just a white noise machine. It blocks out, it cancels the noise around me. Or to think about it another way, it cancels the chaos. I'm guessing each of us could think about the things we wish had not been canceled, maybe a TV show or a style of clothing. But when it comes to canceling chaos, I'm game. I doubt there are many of you who wish you had more chaos in your lives. As we look at Mark chapter 9, Jesus, Peter, James, and John go on somewhat of a field trip up a mountain. Just before this, in Mark, things had been pretty busy for Jesus and his followers. They had fed thousands of people with just a few loaves of bread and some fish. Jesus walked on water. He healed people. The crowds were getting more curious. The religious leaders were getting more skeptical. There was chaos. So I can imagine that Peter, James, and John were all pretty happy to be stepping away from that for a minute. The hike up the mountain is always challenging if you're hiking. It's challenging on your legs, on your lungs. But think about it. When you turn around, when you finish that hike, you see how far you've come. You see everything you've left behind and your attitude changes. The mountaintop view makes everything below seem tiny and insignificant. All that noise is quieter, maybe canceled. So suddenly, when Jesus is transfigured and his clothes become dazzling white, when Elijah and Moses appear, two pillars of faith, you can understand why Peter's eyes must have lit up, why he became fixated on this situation, even if, as the Bible tells us, he's amazed and afraid. Head down the mountain? No way. The mountain seems like a great place to stay. So let's get comfortable. I'm going to build a shelter for you, you, and you. But it doesn't take long for Peter and the other disciples to be brought back to reality. A cloud appears and they hear a voice. "This is my son whom I love. Listen to him." Soon they're headed back down the mountain. But this experience has gotten them thinking about some things. If you have ever gone on a hike, you can relate to all those trail conversations that I imagine the disciples were having, where the path is so skinny and it's uneven, so you can't even look at each other in the eye when you're walking. Admittedly, it's sometimes easier to have conversations when you don't have to look at someone. So the disciples, they start to wonder, if Jesus is the Messiah, and if he'll rise again from the dead as Jesus himself told us, what about everything else we've been taught our whole lives? See, for the Jewish people, they understood that the prophet Elijah would come and restore things before the Messiah came. Elijah was seen as a hero of faith. He would bring peace and wholeness to things that had been broken. Peace, wholeness, restoration, that sounds great. That sounds like another way to erase the chaos. But here's the rub. Jesus keeps talking about this suffering that he's going to endure, about the pain he's headed toward. And then, in the midst of this confusion, bam, they get down the mountain. There's a crowd, there's arguing, there's running. There's a boy who's suffered from seizures his whole life. There's a plea from a desperate father who just wants a normal life for his son. This man, he says to Jesus, "If you can do anything, take pity on us and help us." "If you can," says Jesus, "everything is possible for one who believes." Immediately the boy's father exclaimed, "I do believe. Help me overcome my unbelief." From the way this part of the story starts in Mark 9, we could have easily figured that mountaintop life was going to be the pinnacle. By canceling out the noise, by literally being in the clouds, you might have thought it was the place to become closer to God, that everything would have been easier up there. But Jesus brings them back down the mountain, back into the chaos, to the place where there's a father who brings his son for healing, and yet also admits that he's got doubts and belief at the same time. As much as you and I probably both love to cancel the chaos, that's not where Jesus is truly known. It's in the midst of our fears, in the midst of our pain and suffering. It's in those moments when we admit as humans that both doubt and belief sometimes are held side by side in our life. And that is when Jesus shows up. So today, as you read this part of Mark, here are some questions to consider. Number one, When have you experienced the highs of the mountaintop and the chaos of the valley? And number 2, when have you, like that father, held both immense doubt and steadfast belief at the same time?